At exactly 3:17 a.m., a nurse stopped walking. She froze in the middle of the hallway. Later, she would tell investigators the same thing every other nurse eventually said. "I thought it was a person until I realized it wasn't moving." Security cameras showed nothing. No patient, no staff member, no shadow. But the nurse refused to continue her shift, because what she saw wasn't just standing there, it was watching. This hospital, located in the United States, had no reputation for paranormal activity. It was a functioning, respected medical center. Clean audits, trained professionals, strict procedures. The kind of place where imagination isn't tolerated, especially on night shifts where mistakes cost lives. The first report was dismissed as fatigue. The nurse had worked 12 hours. The lights sometimes flickered. Stress can play tricks on the mind. The report was filed. No follow-up. 2 weeks later, another nurse, different department, different shift, reported the same figure. Same height, same location, same silence. She described it standing near the patient rooms, motionless, just beyond the reach of the ceiling lights. When asked if it spoke, she shook her head. It didn't need to. That second report was also dismissed. Then a third nurse came forward. She had no idea about the previous incidents, no access to internal reports, and yet she described the figure with disturbing precision, down to where it stood and how it seemed to appear only when the hallway was empty. Administration began noticing a pattern they didn't want to acknowledge. Every report happened after midnight. Every sighting occurred near the same rooms, and every nurse who saw it requested to be transferred off night shift. But what truly alarmed them wasn't the sightings. It was what started happening to the patients afterward.
Hospital administrators finally did what they had avoided for weeks. They pulled the records, not the incident reports, not the nurse complaints, the patient logs. Every sighting had been reported near the same section of the building, the East Wing, 3rd floor. More specifically, near rooms 312 to 318. At first, the connection seemed harmless. Those rooms handled critical patients. Late-night alarms were common. Emotions ran high. Stress explained everything. Until someone noticed the dates. Patients assigned to those rooms had a statistically higher mortality rate, not enough to raise alarms on paper, but enough to make experienced staff uneasy. And there was another detail. In at least 4 cases, patients had pressed the call button minutes before their condition suddenly deteriorated. When nurses arrived, the patients asked the same question: who was just standing here? One nurse documented that a patient described a tall figure near the foot of the bed. Another patient reportedly asked why a man in the dark wouldn't respond when spoken to. Doctors attributed it to hypoxia, medication side effects, terminal agitation. But nurses started comparing notes quietly, in break rooms, elevators, parking lots after shifts. Their descriptions matched. Not a hallucination, not a dream. A figure standing still, slightly outside the direct light. No facial details, no sound, no movement. Hospital security was brought in. Cameras were reviewed. That's when something unsettling surfaced. Footage from the East Wing between 2:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. showed brief signal distortions, not full outages, but enough to obscure parts of the hallway for seconds at a time. IT called it interference. Maintenance blamed outdated wiring. But one technician noticed something odd. The distortions didn't happen randomly. They happened only when the call buttons in those rooms were activated. And there was one more thing. Room 316, the room most frequently mentioned, had been closed once before, years earlier, for a reason no one liked to talk about.
Room 316 had been closed once before. Not for renovation, not for contamination, for an investigation. Years earlier, A patient died there under circumstances officially classified as natural causes. The report was clean, signed, archived. But when administrators revisited the file, something didn't add up. The patient had pressed the call button multiple times in the hour before death. Each time, no nurse entered the room. According to the logs, no alerts were received, except the system showed the calls were made. The nurse assigned to that shift claimed she never heard them. When interviewed back then, she said something strange. "I thought someone else was already in the room." Her statement had been dismissed. Now it didn't seem so easy to ignore. Security footage from that night was requested again, what remained of it. Several hours were missing, not corrupted, not damaged, deleted. And the deletion wasn't random, only footage from the East Wing, only between 2:40 and 3:30 a.m. When questioned, the hospital's former IT supervisor said he acted under direct instruction from administration. No explanation was documented. Then came the detail no one expected. The patient who died in room 316 had been a former hospital employee, a night shift orderly who had worked in that same wing years earlier. He knew the building, he knew the routines, he knew the call system. And before his death, according to a nurse's handwritten note, he whispered something while looking toward the foot of the bed. "He's back." That note never made it into the official report. As staff quietly pieced together the past and present, fear spread, not because of what they believed, but because of what the records showed. Every time the figure was reported, someone died within hours, not immediately, not dramatically, quietly, and always alone. The hospital never reopened room 316, but the sightings didn't stop. They just moved. The hospital issued its conclusion quietly. No press conference, no public statement. Internally, the explanation was simple: stress, fatigue, and coincidence. The increased mortality rate was attributed to patient profiles. The call button reports were labeled technical malfunctions. The camera distortions were blamed on outdated wiring. Room 316 was permanently reassigned, not closed, just renamed. But among the nurses, the explanation never held, because the sightings didn't end. They changed. The figure was no longer reported standing at the end of hallways. Nurses began seeing it reflected, briefly, in supply room windows, in stainless steel surfaces, in darkened monitor screens that should have shown nothing at all. Always the same outline, always silent, always watching. One nurse, who later resigned, described something that never appeared in any report. She said the figure began appearing after patients pressed the call button, not before, as if it responded. Another nurse claimed that when she entered a room moments after a sighting, the air felt colder, the monitors functioned normally, the patient was alive, but unsettled. It felt like something had just left, she said. The hospital discouraged further discussion. Staff were reminded of professionalism, of boundaries, of policy. Yet to this day, certain nurses refuse to work the East Wing past midnight, not because they believe in ghosts, but because they trust patterns. And there is one final detail the hospital has never explained. Since the incidents began, every single nurse who reported the figure eventually transferred departments, resigned, or left healthcare entirely. No injuries, no threats, no official danger, just a shared certainty that whatever stands in those hallways doesn't come for staff. It waits, and when the call button is pressed, it answers.